my nature is to always put other people first.
Yeah, that's right.
But wow, to the extreme that only recently I realised that it causes neglect for me. I ran away from home when I was 16. My mum said she was going to cut my head off with a knife one day. And I said, there's this thing that I want to talk about, which keeps coming up in the background. And I haven't ever spoken about it publicly, but I will today. Fuck it. But when you break up with someone because you realise I'm the fucking toxic person in my life, that's harder.
Welcome, Lucia. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
It's an absolute pleasure. So Lucia, like for all our guests, what we normally do is we start at the beginning of their journey and we kind of go through the journey with them. So where did it all start for you?
Well, the thing is about me is I can't remember what the actual word for it is, portfolio career. I think that's what you call it, where you have two different things that you do. I've done two things in my life. So when we say where did it start, do we talk about music, do we talk about Pilates, or do we talk about my personality in the middle?
We could, middle.
What do we do?
We'll go straight down the middle.
Yeah, and I just refer to the both things.
Yeah, for sure.
I think I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I'm not really someone who thinks about the purpose of life or what that is, because I've gone through that and I think it's a bit stressful to think about what the purpose of life is. So I've just decided to start following my intuition, and I've been leading with my intuition for maybe a year and just seeing how that has molded my life.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, fair.
Getting out of my head and more into here to feel the direction that I should be going in. And recently I've been going, what is it that is drawing me to the jobs that I do and the direction of the jobs that I'm doing? For example, in music, I'm pretty focused on wanting to help people with their events and help younger people coming into the scene, or people that are not maybe young but fresh into it, to help them and guide them, get the best out of that. And then same with my day job, which is Pilates and working with students. It's actually the same thing that I want for the students there that I want for the people in the music world. And so I've been going, well, the common denominator between those two things is me. So what is it about me, and why is it that these things are important to me? And I guess where everything begins is like with everyone in childhood.
Yeah, that's correct.
And
yeah.
What is driving me is probably the things that I didn't get, that I wish I got, that I can help other people with. That's where I'm at the moment. In 3 months, I might be thinking something different about it.
What did you feel like you didn't get?
A lot of things, man. Like, I never saw my parents hug or kiss, or I love you was not something in our household. You know, there was a lot of lack of affection, which has maybe made me very hard, but also I can't go back in my life. I can't go back in my life, right? I only know my life the way it is, and my personality that's grown the way it is because of what I've grown up with. If I didn't have that, I can't say what I think I would be like without it. So
do you feel like you're more compassionate towards it in the process? Because you
compassionate towards the childhood?
Yeah, because you had a lack of certain things, it's more now important to you to give those things back to the world that you never quite got.
Yeah, for me, but I mean, some personalities lack and then they turn into absolute narcissists or sociopaths.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? It's very interesting how what I reflect on and how I think that that's molded me is probably a lot to do with having therapy in my life and reprogramming the person I want to be rather than being the product of the environment. So what I lacked, I think, a lot growing up was one of the major things, if I just cut to the chase without the years of therapy to get there, is a sprinkle of self-belief. Lack of self-belief, I think, is one of the most damaging things for anyone. Whether it's you have lack of self-belief or other people around you have lack of self-belief, I think it's quite destructive for a human to not feel that they can do things. Because that's what we're here to do. We do things.
Yeah,
we don't just sit.
I think the most powerful thing is having your own self-belief.
It's hardest to get.
One of the hardest things to get. Have you experienced it before?
Having self-belief or lack of?
Well, both. I suppose.
I'm only now as a 37-year-old woman, and this makes me really upset, to be honest. But I'm trying to not be upset with it. I'm trying to see the positives in it because I've got so much life ahead of me. Right, I've got more than 37 years. I'm hoping ahead to get good. But I've realised I'm only starting to really, truly have self-belief
now.
Yeah, because I've done a lot of things, and a lot of people have said, "Oh, you've achieved this and you've achieved that," and it's awesome. But it's stemmed from maybe a negative backbone, rather than being a caring, nurturing, self-belief because I think I can do this because I deserve it, rather than I'm doing this because I want to compete with someone, or I'm doing this because I want to prove something to someone. That still gets the job done, but the intention behind it, I think, does actually affect the result. Right, and the feeling of success at the end of it. You feel like I'm not really succeeding. I just feel like I've sneakily got that person for saying this to me. And a lot of people, you probably had podcasts with them where they talk about being driven by shit things that have happened to them or things that have been said to them. I don't want to be driven by that anymore. I want to be purely driven by something because I enjoy it and I'm good at it.
Yeah, I kind of like, with stuff like that, I think as we kind of go on our journey, we have to really understand the kind of traumas that we've gone through. And I think some people are a bit blinded by them traumas, and then they just carry it the whole way through their own lives. And when you start working on yourself, yes, it's hard to process and there's a lot to look at that can be quite painful. But I think if you can work your way through that, you start to heal, and then your intention becomes a lot more purer than it did before that, I think. Yeah. Well, that's what I like to think.
Because you unpack things a bit, and it just, without even having the intention of changing the intention, by unpacking, you're just changing as a human.
Yeah.
You learn different things and it molds you. Whether people notice that externally, the internal change is really what needs to happen to make your life better, I think. And it's interesting you talk about doing the work and work being hard. A lot of people talk about the work, and actually, what is the work? What is working on yourself? So many things come up, and so many people now on social media as well talk about, you got to work on it. But what does that look like? How do you work on it? And what's the journey of working on something? I find that for me, working on things is noticing something about myself, which is a pattern of behavior that is putting me in a situation I don't like, and then having the ability to go, I don't want to do that. I'm going to purposefully do something else, which is not natural, because in your pattern you behave what's instinctually natural to you.
Yeah.
But that is causing problems a lot in my life.
Do you ever find that there's an issue between critiquing yourself in a positive way as well as in a negative way? So you might be your own worst critic, and therefore you're always a bit too hard on yourself in the process.
I'm so hard on myself, and so many of my therapy sessions are about actually recognizing the good and not being so hard, because of what's been around me and what's normal to me is to look at all the bad things.
Yeah, I understand.
And just slate yourself for that, rather than going, these are bad things. How do I make good out of that? Or how can I change that so I'm no longer doing those bad things or thinking those bad things about myself? It's quite hard. That's what I'm saying, is the lack of self-belief. To get that as an adult while you've already got those thoughts embedded becomes really challenging.
Yeah.
And the work isn't knowing what to do. The work is putting the boxing gloves on when that pattern comes up and you box it in the head and you go, you fuck off, sit in the corner. Can I swear? You swear. You go, it's fine. Fuck off, sit in that. And I say it because you have to be aggressive sometimes with yourself. But for the case of love, where you go, I'm not going to behave like that. I can feel that I really want to do that thing, but I'm going to do this thing instead. And it takes a bit of doing that for that to become more natural and comfortable before it becomes the instinctual thing to do, right? That's how what we call changing a pattern, or some people call it reparenting yourself.
Right, okay.
Because if you have a child that behaves a certain way and you discipline them, not in an aggressive way, but if you discipline them, teach them consequence and say, we're not going to do that because this is going to be the outcome, or there's some kind of discipline punishment to train a child, right? I don't mean punishment as in aggression. Sometimes I don't have the right language, but what I mean is more teaching someone about consequence, right?
Yeah.
And if you do that with a kid, you have to do that with yourself to reparent yourself. And that is what the work is. It's going, I don't have anyone else guiding me and going, that's not the right thing to do. I have to, in the moment, while I want to do this thing, stop and do the other thing. And it's that
key
moment. It's a second of work that makes you stop and change direction. That is the work. And so many people that I know, friends as well, because I know I see a therapist, I've seen one for years, they come to me for help and advice and then go and see a therapist, and they talk, and I always go, what's going on with your therapist? Can I ask you, when you told them this thing that we discussed, what did they say back? Yeah. And all I'm hearing is a shit ton of validation. And I'm like, you need to pay me to train you. How is this therapist getting paid just to make you feel good about yourself? That's not it. That's not work.
Well, what do you think? Like
tools. You need tools so that when this motherfucker comes up to make you be a beast or be this person that you don't want to be or act in a way, they give you tools so that you can square up to it and go, no, I'm not doing that. I'm doing this. How do you do it? Tools, ways. I can give you an example. I have a partner who I was with, not with him now. I was with him for nearly 7 years. And he's my favourite person in the world. And a lot of people can't get this. They're like, well, if he was so great, you would still be with him. It's not like that. And I used to think like that as well. But I had a pattern of putting him first. In fact, I do this with everyone. It's not just personal to him. But this is where I really noticed I saw the benefit of working with a therapist to change patterns of behaviour, to change my life and the way I felt about things and what I thought I deserved. And he has a head injury, right? He came off a bike in Thailand and was asleep for 5 days. And if you know anything about head injury, people are not the same when they wake up. You get frontal lobe damage. Sometimes you're not good with empathy after. There's a lot of links with head injury and
PTSD as well.
PTSD and personality disorders. So it starts to present like narcissism or sociopath or things like that, right? And apparently a lot of sociopaths have had a knock to the head. I've read a bit of research recently, which is interesting, but it just kind of proves the point. I wish I could give you evidence of where I saw that, but my brain remembers the details, but not the other things.
I didn't even know, because I had a bad car crash once, and I was reading up about it years later, and they said head trauma can lead to PTSD.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I didn't even know that, to be honest with you. That was something I later kind of found out, but I thought, oh, that kind of makes a bit more sense.
It makes you understand some of the weird things you might have been doing or feeling even. Because sometimes it's not about the reaction, the external reaction of someone's behaviour. It's also how they feel. You know, like some people, when they get head injury, their testosterone falls to the floor. Right, and there's a bloke, if you're, early 30s and that happens to you,
I know.
It's going to affect your motivation, it's going to affect your sex drive, it's going to affect how you feel about yourself when you look in the mirror, which can affect a lot of things in your life, So it's not just the outward behaviour, it's the internalized feelings and
how you're processing things.
Exactly, and how you feel about yourself, which is ultimately the quality of your life, your mindset and how you feel about yourself.
So he had a crash and...
has got frontal lobe damage, and my nature is to always put other people first.
Yeah, that's right.
But wow, to the extreme that only recently I realised that it causes neglect for me.
Yeah, that's exactly.
And now I fully understand when I'm putting someone else first, I am immediately neglecting myself.
So someone even said to me once, so while you're being loyal to other people, you're also being disloyal to yourself.
There you go. I wish I met you and you told me this 10 years ago.
Yeah.
As much as people float things and say things, it doesn't hit all the time. Like maybe you would have said that to me 10 years ago and I was like, yeah, I am putting myself first. I'm caring. I was not loving myself properly until this year. And that's hard. And I look back and go, wow, a lot of the fuckeries in my life has been because I have failed myself. How dare I point fingers at others when actually I could have served myself better. And I know that now. And it makes me feel strong now that I think, probably some things will slip through the cracks, but it's a journey and I'm learning and I'm getting so much better at looking after myself. But with this situation with him, there would be an issue with me and him. And I talked to him about it. And he would be honest about why that happened for him. And I would then comfort him or try and help him feel better about the thing. And then by doing that, I mean, the reason I'm having this conversation with you is because I've got a problem with you. And instead of it being about me feeling better about that problem, I'm now helping you with why you've done that thing, which has caused the problem.
He's the victim,
Yeah, but it wasn't that he victimised himself. It was just the way it is,
Right, okay.
I won't say anything bad about him. I won't have anyone say bad about him because I love him and I know what this was about.
You was very quick to make it about him more than you
I was very quick to make it about him.
More than about yourself.
Yeah, and it wasn't that I even thought that was wrong, but I had to work with a therapist to end it with him because ending it with him would have given me so much guilt because he would have been left on his own and how is he going to deal with all these things without me there? And because of the head injury thing too that I helped him so much with, I felt like we were so entwined in that way.
It's hard enough breaking up with someone anyway, let alone if you're the sort of person that mentally always thinks about other people all the time.
But when you break up with someone because they're not good for you, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But when you break up with someone because you realise I'm the fucking toxic person in my life, that's harder.
What, you felt that you was a problem?
Absolutely. I was completely betraying myself. You know what I mean? He's not a bad person. He's fucking great.
Yeah.
But I didn't know how to I don't even know how to word it. I didn't know how to love myself properly. You know what I mean?
And unfortunately, what it takes is sometimes for you to actually have to leave certain spaces and enter new ones to work all of that out.
Or just go, I've got this thing that I keep doing and I don't know how to get out of it. It's like I keep getting to the wall and I'm like, everyone's climbing over it and I don't know where do you put your foot? Like, how are these people climbing this boulder? And it's when you do, for example, bouldering, you get someone to go, your foot goes there and you're going to find these ones for your hand. It's literally, that is the analogy of it. Someone tells you to put your foot there, tells you to put your hand there. You might fall a few times because your grip's not there, but you know where to put it. And the only way you learn is by keep practicing. The grip goes there, the foot goes there until you get to the top and you get over and you change your pattern. And I went to my therapist and I was like, I need to get away. I need to break up with him. One of the main reasons is because I can't keep in this pattern. And so what would happen is I'd go to him with an issue and the same thing would happen. And then I'd feel myself wanting to care. And then I'd go, I had a sentence laid out for me that I would say. And it's like, okay, I understand this is hard for you. This is really hard for me as well. I'm going to go and deal with that. And I'm going to let you deal with that. And that's all right, yeah?
Yeah.
Saying that's one thing. Physically getting up and walking out of the room and shutting the door, I'm not going in that room thinking about the things I need to think about. I'm going in there and feeling fucking guilt and dealing with the guilt of that situation that I've put myself in right now. But knowing that that guilt that I'm feeling and that pain that I'm feeling from feeling like I'm letting him down was my growth. That's the work. Making yourself upset and not going into, this is going to be more comfortable just to help him. I'm actually just going to walk away and feel uncomfortable about the fact that I've walked away until walking away becomes comfortable. Then when walking away has become comfortable, I then have the space to develop the things I need to become the better person in that situation, to the point that then I wouldn't have to leave the room. I can go, okay, cool. You're feeling that. I'm feeling this. I'm just going to let you know nice and firmly that this is where I'm at and I'm not changing my mind on it.
Yeah.
And that's your stuff and separate. That's your stuff. This is my stuff.
I think there's got to be an art where you compromise with the individual, where neither two people feel like they've been kind of left behind, but that's always a hard balance to get right in a relationship. I think that's what some people generally struggle with a lot more than others.
Yeah, and compromise is interesting, right? Because I hated compromise before and I believe that I should never compromise. And at the beginning of my relationship with him, we actually went to couple therapy. Okay. And this is where I learned the art of compromise and what it actually is. Because a lot of people, and you have to be very careful out there in the world, that people throw the word compromise around, but they just want to manipulate you.
Right, okay.
They're using compromise as manipulation because people don't understand that compromise is you're both uncomfortable rather than one of you being uncomfortable and one of you being uncomfortable. One of you being good and one of you not being good. Yeah. It's actually, when I love you and I'm with you, I'd rather be uncomfortable with you than you be uncomfortable alone. And we both get something good out of it. An example is we used to fight, argue. And the head injury thing made it really hard because logical and reasoning wasn't quite there at the beginning stages of that recovery. And I'm very logical and reasoning. And I'm like, come on, can't you see this and this and that? So we'd get into these big rows and I would want to be on my own, shut the door, don't talk to me. And some people are like that. They want to be on their own.
Just want some space, yeah. Space,
thank you. Or avoidant. I don't know. Is it space or is it? You know what I mean?
I like the term space. I think you have to reconcile things.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't always do that when you've got people around you, when you've got a lot going on in your own head. So having that peace and that space to be able to figure that out for you is
amazing. But I'm not hiding because I want to figure stuff out. I'm hiding because if I don't, I'm going to punch you in the head and we're in trouble. I need to put myself in a cage. Do you know what I mean? Do you see what I mean? There's different intentions to why we do things.
Yeah.
Right? So he would want to have a hug. I'm going in the room to hide, and he's like, I just want to know that you love me. Can I have a hug? And I'm like, don't touch me. What? No, I want to be on my own. And so we couldn't resolve because we want so many different things. And most people, I guess, would break up at that point and go, which is not going to work. But we went to a therapist, and I thought, right, I'm going to give it 6 weeks. If it doesn't work after that, I'm done. We got to this, I'll cut it short. We got to this point where she was like, right, because it's going to happen again. Can we come to some agreement? I'm like, okay, cool. The compromise is that we both are happy with what we're going to agree on. Do you think you could give him a hug before you go into the room? Absolutely not. I can't do that. He really needs touch, though. He really needs assurance before you go into the room because his issues with abandonment in the past mean he needs that little bit of
reassurance. Yeah.
And in that space, I can't give reassurance.
Well, that's because at that moment in time, you're thinking about you need to think about yourself.
Yeah, but in a relationship, you're always thinking about the two, right? Or if you're not thinking about the two, naturally you just work, and how you think about yourself works for that other person, and that's organic. Great, I wish to find that, but hey ho, that's not going to happen, is it? You have to work for relationships. So she's gone, can you do that? Absolutely not. And I'm saying, could you do me being in the room for 10 minutes and then coming back out? Maybe I could agree that. He's like, no, because when you're in there for that 10 minutes, I'm feeling distressed for 10 minutes. And it's not fair that you're soothing while I'm getting really stressed. And that's not fair.
It starts turning into quite a bit of pressure, these situations as well, like where, relationships, obviously there's always a bit of pressure involved, but you want to kind of be able to find that place where you can work together.
In the middle, which is compromise, right?
Yeah.
Building the bridge. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. He was like, I'm not really comfortable with that. And I was like, see, this isn't going to work. And she was like, no, you keep finding ways that it will work. So what about if we try this? What about if you can stop and tell him, I'm going in the room, but I love you. I want you to know I'll be out in 10 minutes. Just do something else. Like, don't worry about the fact that I don't love you and don't want to be with you.
Yeah.
I'm going to be fine.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, would that work for you? He's like, to be honest, I need the touch. And I'm like, oh man, I'm thinking punch. I'm thinking a punch. Is that good?
Well, any form physical might.
She was like, okay, the hug's pushing it. And this sounds so petty, but it's so sweet at the same time. And I'm okay to talk about it because, like, what do you mean you can't put your arms around someone? I'm feeling really distressed, and I've got a lot of anger issues at that time as well, right? And this person's triggering that. Do you reckon you could put your hand on his arm? We've come to this. You hold his hand or put his hand on your arm. Do you know what? I think I can do that. And the minute I said, I think I can do that, I felt this feeling of softness in my body and feeling of, it just clicked. This is what compromise is. It's finding it until, not going, I want you to do this, can you do it? No, well, you're not compromising. No, the compromise is working together to keep finding something that you're both okay with. That's compromise. If that doesn't work, it's okay, more options. And this is why people need to be more open to therapy in their relationships and not see it as a failure. It's because as humans, we don't have all the answers. And it might take an outside person to go, oh, what about if you poke him on the forehead? Maybe he wants that. It's something that you wouldn't have thought of.
Just got to keep working it out.
Yeah, because he's going, I want a hug, and I'm like, no. So then there's got to be more. So there's a situation, I remember it clear as day. It was in the hallway, actually. Started arguing in the front room, but then I'm going into the bedroom, right? So I've got to walk through the hallway, and he's followed me, and I'm like, oh. And then I put my arm out, and I was going, I love you, it's okay. And honestly, I was doing this. We were looking at both of us, and he went, you can do it. And I was like, I forgot a reminder of the feeling, like feeling from my gut, like the discomfort of having to put my hand on someone to tell them that it was okay and I was going to go in there. That's work. That was hard, man. I just felt it now. I don't know what it triggered in me, but to do that, everything in my being didn't want to put my hand on him because my nature is to go.
Yeah.
So I've put my hand on him and I've gone there. I put my hand on him there and I went, I love you. I'm just going to go in there for a minute. And he was like, thank you. And I went in there. And then it was almost when the door shut, I wasn't thinking about what I was going to be thinking about initially when I went in the room. I suddenly had this massive cry of release and feeling a bit more like bonded to him. But because I had found this way to start changing my toxic pattern. And to someone else, it might have been fine to hide in a room because they like to hide in a room as well.
Yeah.
But not every relationship's that organically blessed in that way. So it might be that you have to find the compromise. And anyway, as a result, from practicing that with him, it got to the point that now I can just go, this isn't about you. Like the conversation now, which is why he's my favorite person, is because now we'll have a conversation. And before we even go into something, I'll go, I've got an issue about something else in my life now, because he's not really ever the issue in my life as a friend. You don't get triggered in the same way. He'll go, what do you need from me? Do you need me to give you advice, make you laugh, or this? Before I started going with my problem. Because one of the issues I had with him a lot was he would always try to fix everything. And it made me feel very smothered. And I would get frustrated and feel like I was being micromanaged. And I'm very powerful and strong and I know myself. I just need a moment sometimes, let that pass, and then I'm good. I will always find my way out of the hole. I don't need you to pull me out. But this is what happens, right? A lot of people don't ask questions. What do you need from me right now? And we got to that point. So when I'm going, right, when you know that someone has got you like that and can be respectful like that, I no longer feel like I need to hide in a room. because I feel like I can say to you right here, right now, I'm really upset. And when I tell you this, I want you to know that I'm not looking for you to defend yourself. I'm looking for you to accept what I'm telling you and maybe
understand it better.
Give me some validation to maybe, or understand if you were in my shoes, maybe what you would have done.
Because the thing I find a lot with when people want to express themselves, I don't think it's about necessarily people want the answer to their problems. I think a lot of it is just about being heard.
Yeah.
And like getting it out of their system.
Airing it.
Yeah, airing it. And even rationalising it. Sometimes what's going on in here isn't really necessarily how we feel, but once we've got it out of our system, we can generally process things a bit easier. And I think there's a lot of the times where people just feel like, why don't you do this or why don't you do that? Just trying to put a band-aid over it, as opposed to necessarily like going through that journey with the individual.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, not everyone's kind of trained as a therapist, are they? You find a massive difference in therapy compared to day-to-day relationships and when people are giving you advice.
Yeah. And also we're in a culture and society that we think that any relationship, even friendship, gets stronger from arguments, right? And they're like, it's all right, it makes you stronger. If you're not arguing in a relationship, the sex must be boring or the whole thing must be a bit lame, right? I've had that too. I've had relationships where I'm like, we don't really fight. Like, I don't know if I'm used to fighting in the family and fighting with everyone because I was an angry kid. That for me, when there's no fights, I'm like, oh, there's no passion here.
Yeah, that's right.
But actually, that's a toxic thought that I've had as well, because instead of having the bust up and having the talk after, preempt it and have the talk first.
Yeah.
So when actually someone, even on a friendship level, comes and moans or wants to have a vent or something, even now I say, just before you carry on, I do exactly what he did with me. What do you need from me when we do this? Do you want my advice? Because I'm the kind of person, if you don't ask, I'm going to give you advice. That's my natural default. If you right now told me a problem, I would start thinking in my head, my brain, when you're talking to me, is starting to find solutions because I'm a solution finder. Right.
Yeah, fair.
That's my nature. I get paid to do things like that. People come to me for a problem and I find a solution to help them be better at what they're doing. That I like that. That's my strength and I own that now. And so I also know that when you come to vent, I'm thinking, right, this would be good. This could be good. This could be good to help you. But then I go, maybe they don't want that. So I say, do you want that side of me? Do you want me to have a laugh with you? And what I think about it after is not really that relevant. It's about meeting that person in the middle on a friendship, right? And if you do that first, you don't have the argument.
Then
you don't need to have the argument to make up. You can learn each other by not taking things so personally, right? And being able to go, okay, cool, you're you, I'm me. What you say doesn't have to affect me. What I say doesn't have to affect you. But to make sure we can have a harmonious situation right now, what do we need? It's literally the most simple question. What do you need from me? When my therapist started asking me that, the problem was I didn't fucking know, did I?
That's right. Yeah, I know.
I was like, what do you mean? What do I
want? Yeah. What do I need from this?
What works for you then? So if you're moaning about that, what do you need instead? And then that's where we go, oh, we're really good in society at moaning, but what do we actually want and need? And then I realised I'd never actually looked at myself and realised what I needed, because in the household, it was all about other people. Yeah. What you need is second and last.
Yeah, that's right.
You'll get rewarded in heaven. That's the attitude of my house, right? So what I started looking at, what do I want? What do I need? And that's a journey on its own.
Do you think that was quite a cultural thing? This kind of like looking after everybody else?
It's very Mediterranean, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it's in our DNA.
Yeah.
I don't really know where it comes from or what it's about, but...
Because I saw a lot of that growing up, where it was just... My mum was always really good at making sure everyone...
Being the martyr.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, pretty much.
And the thing is, in society as well, that's looked at as a really good person.
Yeah.
I like this woman because she does everything for everyone.
There is a power behind it, by the way.
Absolutely.
Like, I think the balance, though, is to make sure that you don't forget about yourself in the process. Yeah. And a lot of people, they make it all about other people, or they make it all about themselves.
Yeah, there's a balance, like you said before. And the balance is what's beautiful in life, right? And I think now, being someone who... I said to my therapist, I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be the one that's always putting people first and helping other people. And she said, just be aware, if we work on that, you're taking away a lot of other things about you as well.
Yeah, that's right.
You don't just take away that one thing.
Well, it opens your eyes in a different way, and then you start seeing stuff that you might not necessarily like as well.
Or it might start to affect other areas of your life. And so actually, how do you keep the core of who you are, but just do it in a more respectful, loving way for yourself? And one of those major things is to see what you're getting from the other person energetically, right? If you're always doing something for someone, and there's not much coming back for you apart from the goodness of doing a good thing, that's not balanced. That becomes the problem.
Yeah.
I can give now to people, but what I do, because I'm so confident in my giving, that now, and this is something I'm currently working through, I'm not there yet, but the stage I'm at is, let me observe, because I know I'm loyal and I know I can give.
You've got the traits.
Yeah, I don't need to tell that to people. I know even the smallest thing is bigger than a lot of other people's actions, right? So I go, before I give, I'm going to see what I get, because I know I'm going to give. So the minute I get, I'm going to give. So they're not ever going to feel like I'm a taker. Do you get what I mean? I worry that people think I'm a taker. That's another guilt thing that I've been working on. But the way I do that is I know what I'm capable of giving. So the minute I see something, then I match it. If I see 2 cubes on the table, I give 2 cubes.
Yeah.
If I see 3, I give 3. Whereas before, I wouldn't even see a cube and the whole fucking box is on the table. And that's the problem.
I think that sometimes part of the issue is that we set the tone of something in life, and then when we want to change it, we don't quite like the look of what we've seen.
Yeah.
And that could be quite problematic. And I was listening to somebody the other day on, I think it was Alex Hormozy, where he was saying that with givers, we get a lot more opportunities in our lives. We get hurt a lot more, but in the process, we actually get a lot more back than what takers generally get.
Yeah, and it comes back in ways, I guess you have to really open the blinkers to see how that is coming back to you. Yeah,
that's the thing I found in life is you might not get it back exactly what you wanted, but you'll get it back in a different way. And I found that in life, even with karma and just like even with friends or people. Like I've always been the giver in my group, and things always come back round in different ways, and I'm just like, I'm okay with that. You know, it is a bit hard because I think the bit that I actually struggled was I was giving too much to other people more than I was to myself.
Yeah.
So the lack of self-love bit, I think, can be a problem, because you deteriorate in the process and you get forgotten about and left behind while you're pushing everyone up. So I think, but then, you know, we're masters of our own destinies as well. We control everything. So
that sentence you just said sounds so light when you say it, but the depth behind it is something I've started to really learn, that we are masters of it.
Yeah, 100%. We're fully in control of our own lives, whether we want to hear it or not hear it. You know,
but it's not easy to control your life though, because you have to go through this work to get the good things, and it's not easy. You know what I mean? It's not always other people that are going to make your life hard. I put myself in the fire a lot of the time so that no one else can burn me. Yeah. Do you get what I mean? I'm putting myself through the work.
Self-destructive behaviours sort of thing, like self-sabotaging.
No. What I mean is I'm putting myself through this uncomfortable work of shaking and going through changing my patterns. That's me burning myself to make sure that I don't let anyone else burn me, make me suffer.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about, that deep emotional therapy work. Yeah. That's the fire to me. Uncomfortableness, burning, pain.
It's rough.
Putting myself through it though, rather than someone else teaching me a lesson. I'm going to look at myself as a whole and go, these are my issues. I'm the only one who can work through that. Instead of having a friend near you go reminding you and nudging you, you've got to do that yourself. That's the work. You've got to buckle up and you've got to go, right now, everything wants me to go left, but I need to go right.
I think the art with a lot of things when it comes to change is that you actually come up with the idea yourself in your head rather than someone actually telling you what to do. The more you can kind of figure it out in your head yourself, the more sustainable it is for change and growth. I think when somebody's like, okay, if you just do this and just do that, it might temporarily work, but then you're going to revisit a very similar situation over again. And then you know, you've still got to do that work, whatever happens, or you don't. And it's like Groundhog Day. You keep repeating the same thing over and over again. You
keep repeating it.
I think the other issue that we've got is that some people are a lot more self-aware, self-critical, is where you're always looking at things and you're almost a bit harder on yourself than what normal average day-to-day people are. Some people would just go through life
oblivious,
not give a fuck.
I like that sometimes. I wish I was a bit of that sometimes.
So do I. So do I, to be honest with you. Because there are even, like I was speaking to Nemo about it earlier, you can be your own worst critic, you can overthink things, but I think one of the most powerful things is surrounding yourself with really good people that care about you. I think that's a
nail on the head.
Important thing.
One reason why I moved back to London was because, you know, I loved Australia and Melbourne. It was great. And I was living a very easy, comfortable life. But the growth wasn't really there. And I think...
Why did you go to Australia?
In the beginning, in 2013... It's a big story, so we'll make sure we come back to that topic, yeah?
All right.
Yeah. In 2013, I wanted a breather. I wanted just to get out of London for a bit. Not my blood auntie, but someone I worked with when I was in my mid-teens, like 17, she kind of took over what my mum didn't do. Right. As a young female, she taught me a lot about things in life that I needed to know to go into the world. So I call her my adopted auntie, my auntie Sophia, who I love to death. You know,
I understand.
Such a deep relationship, yeah. She moved back with her kid. She lived in London for 25 years and she was my homie, my auntie. And she went there and I thought, I'm going to go and see her and just nourish myself a bit with her because she'd been away for a few years. And I honestly, hand on my heart, thought by now I'd have dreadlocks down to my arse, tattoos everywhere and be selling juices on a beach in Boracay in the Philippines. I did not think I'd be back in London in Hackney, you know?
Really? You missed it?
Yeah, you know, I just thought that my life was going to go that way. I was so ready to just give up everything and just be a free-spirited person, smoking weed and selling juices. I didn't want more for myself at that point, really. Although being very driven, I thought my life would be that. So I went there 2013 and ended up getting a job to get some money in a sales office, having a break from fitness because I had some nodules on my throat, which is why I sound a bit croaky. And they said to me, take a break from teaching at high volume for a long time. So I went and worked in the sales office. And being there for 3 weeks, they wanted to sponsor me to stay. And at that time, to go to Australia, you needed to have 1 year working holiday visa. And to get your second year, in that first year, you had to work 3 months on a farm.
Yes, yeah.
I'm not working on a farm. Hello, this is not happening, right? I'm not like prudish or like not afraid to get my hands dirty.
It just wasn't
I'm
your
a
thing.
Tough bitch, but I'm not working on a farm to stay somewhere in a country when I've got London. London's amazing. Why do I need to do that? But within 3 weeks, remember what we spoke about in the other room, and I said there's this thing that I want to talk about, which keeps coming up in the background, and I haven't ever spoken about it publicly, but I will today. Fuck it. I'm not going to do it just yet, but it's just come up. It just reminded me. The thing that drove me, again, to not get... I said to myself, I'm not going to do a farming thing. I'm going to get sponsored. There for 3 weeks, I must have done things and set things up that they went, we're going to sponsor you. And I was like, fuck yeah. I got what I wanted, right? I didn't want to work on a farm. I didn't even want to stay in Australia, but maybe it was my ego that was like, fuck yeah, everyone else is working on a farm. And I just got sponsored after 3 weeks. Not even like working for it, begging for it. I didn't even want it. And it came up. So I ended up staying.
Fair.
So I ended up staying till 2015. And I absolutely hated it because I'm a fitness music person. I didn't want to sit in an office. My elbows were sore. My joints were sore. It was not right for me to be sat in a chair for that long. Like I had feelings of pain in places that I didn't even... It made me go, I'm not made for sitting down, right? And I left in 2015 and came back to London because I didn't like the job. They closed down the department. They offered me another job and I said, nah, I'm not doing it. So they paid for me. I had 1 week to get out of Australia and come back home. At this time, I'd been seeing my ex, Danny, the one that I told you about. He came to London for... supposed to be a month, ended up staying for 5 months. This is when we started to do our therapy because a lot of things were coming up. And then from that point on, after those 6 weeks of therapy, which is when he left, we decided we'll see where this goes. And it ended up being long distance for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So every 6 or 8 weeks, I think the longest we did without each other was 3 months, but it got to the point where 6 or 8 weeks, one of us was on a plane, going to and fro.
Wow,
so in that time, but it wasn't like it didn't feel like a commitment.
Yeah,
because we just did
a burden or anything.
Yeah,
like that.
it was. Yeah. I love being on my own, and I love being with someone, and I got the best of both.
Yeah, fair.
And I came to London and I grafted hard. I worked every day, and then I could go away for a month.
Yeah,
you
nice.
know? And I liked that. You know, and also what it taught us was we couldn't do things like have sex after an argument or have affection or do things that other couples do. So we had to get really good at verbalizing stuff, verbal affection, verbal support. You know, sometimes, you know, words aren't good and touch is, but we didn't have that. So we had to call on our language to get stronger and develop our relationship. And I'm really grateful for that because even outside of that relationship, it taught me a lot about how to use words to express properly and
articulate yourself.
Yeah, and build bonds.
Yeah.
Right. Which is why I always say to people when they're like, will you stay in touch with me? I'm like, trust me, I'm a pro at long distance relationships. I don't need to see you or cooking it for you to feel good. We can do this, right? I make jokes about it because I'm experienced enough in it. And there's so many, like, long distance relationship podcasts would be amazing. Like, to communicate, there's so many things in that. But again, the therapist I now see still was a relationship therapist. So it was her job to be able to keep building bonds and keeping the bridge between people at any point, right?
Right.
How do you, when it's long distance, the trick is to keep someone in the other person's mind in a good way. Because you can't be physically there. You have to mentally be always, that person needs to have a little place in your mind all the time. And how do you do that?
Do you know what? I want to add this quickly because we had a guest on who she's got her own tech company.
Yeah.
And she created a bracelet that goes around your wrist and you
tells you when your partner's cheating.
Yeah, that's right. No, you can feel their heartbeat.
Fuck you, bitch.
You can feel their heartbeat. So
your partner's heartbeat?
Yeah. So what it does is it tracks your heartbeat. You both wear it from wherever you are in different places. And then you can feel the other person's heartbeat while you sleep. And it was used for relationships originally, but now they've started getting into hospitals, and then they use it for like mother and children.
Amazing, of course. Gives you feedback of what's going on.
Yeah, kind of keep that.
The heart rate starts going up. You'd be like, what's happening?
Yeah. And I thought it was, I've never heard of something like that, but really helps with like keeping the bond.
That's a movie. That sounds like it's from a movie.
Well, our podcast is out soon, so
I can't wait to listen to that. Yeah.
Cool.
Where were we? Australia, went there, long distance, and then ended up, because I was going to and fro, I started to build my relationships in Australia and my friendship groups, and I was DJing, so I'd get gigs whenever I went over, and I started to see more how life could be there now if I went back. And he was there, so I could have gone back at any moment, but I stayed in London for 4 years because I wasn't ready to go back there until I had just a feeling I felt like I needed to tick things off or be in a better place so that when I did leave, if I ever wanted to come back, it wasn't a bad taste in my mouth about London, which I'm so glad I did, because when I came back this year, I came back positive and excited because I knew what I left with I could easily pick up from, or I knew it was possible to have a really healthy, happy life in London, rather than leaving because I hate it and it's busy and hostile. I came back seeing as the potential for money, the growth, the support network that I had in the workplace that I was at for those 4 years is stuff that I fucking wish I had as a child. The cheerleading that I got with the ideas that I'd put on the table, they'd invite me into meetings that had nothing to do with me just to get there's a problem, let me find the solution, which is my natural personality.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was dreaming. How am I getting paid a lot of money to do something that is organically in me? I didn't have to train to be taught that. My brain is that kind of way. And it made me really learn about job satisfaction rather than job happiness. Fuck being happy in your job. You need satisfaction, which is all about stimulation. So if I'm using the parts of my brain that keep me stimulated in my day job,
that's interesting.
I'm actually happy.
Yeah.
When people go, are you happy at work? I'm like, what do you mean? I'm stimulated. Do you get what I mean? Like, seeking the happiness I don't need joy.
I mean, they're pretty closely.
They're
combined.
linked.
But I think with how I've always perceived it is, I haven't always found loads of enjoyment out of work, but I understand that is a necessity as well. Yeah. Like everybody needs to work in life, but being stimulated now, that's a way to really enjoy your job, to be fair. So
well, then you don't get frustrated when you're stimulated. Think about ADHD and the kids that get, yourself and me that has been, people want me to get tested for that.
Yeah.
And I just have this thing in my mind, maybe one day I will, but for the moment I'm processing, if I really enjoy something and I'm satisfied, does my ADHD tendency show up?
Yeah.
Not really. Since I've been back in London, I've been feeling more and more settled in myself because I'm more and more stimulated with the things I'm doing. Not just that, the two areas of my world, the Pilates and the music, I love them both. I love them, and I'm doing things now that stimulate me in them both. Because you can love something, but it doesn't stimulate you because maybe you're in the wrong area or you're doing the wrong thing, or
fair.
I'm a Pilates teacher, a fitness teacher, a personal trainer. I don't personal train people anymore. It doesn't mean I don't like it, but the stimulation for me is helping other personal trainers and other trainers. I'm still working in that field. I'm still ticking that off, but I'm not frustrated training the general public in that way. I'm stimulated because I'm still in the industry and it's still my field, but I'm doing it another avenue.
So the art is to kind of like find your niche of what, really works for you.
Own it and go, I'm good at this. not because I was trained in it, but because my personality naturally is good at this. And the way you look at it is, what's good in my friend circle? What do I offer the friend circle? Those are the things you offer at work.
Right.
It's the same thing. If I'm a carer and a giver and a person who wants my friends to do well, I now get paid to help people do well, because that's what I am, a nurturer, a giver, and a solution finder for people. So when you can find that in yourself and tick that off, for me, life got really fucking good.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to leave London until I had that. And the reason I came back is because, like you said, the circle I was in Melbourne, it wasn't very constructive for me as a person. I was feeling a lot of negative things show up for me in my character because I was understimulated. I was frustrated and stressed a lot. Even though it was a great life and on the outside it looked like I had everything, internally I was struggling a lot. And coming back here, I went back to the same company because I knew being thrown into that pool of positivity and support and cheerleading is what I needed to get this little bit more of growth for myself and reminder of who I am. And I've gone back there and I am in an environment like that, and it massively helps to heal, to all the things you were saying about your circle being massively important, not just about how you're growing and changing in your life, but having that network around you is massive. And now I really understand what people mean when they move closer to their families, when they want to have a kid or whatever, because they feel like they need to be seen and heard by the right people.
The support structure, they need the right support structure around them.
It's so important. And sometimes people around me, they don't even know the impact they've got on me. It's just the way they are naturally works for the things that I lack. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We fill each other's cups without even purposefully needing to, and that's harmonious. And when you can find yourself in a harmonious situation, a lot of shit goes away, man.
It's quite interesting because as I kind of went through my journey, I've met quite a lot of people, and I was never really quite conscious about who was healthy for me and who wasn't. But as I've kind of got older, I've really kind of found a strong way of putting the right people around me that maybe I have a lack of certain things and they can give me one thing or another that
team.
And so I try and give them whatever I can give them, and it's the same, and we're just kind of holding each other up and being support structures for each other in all different ways. And that's quite like a nice thing, because I've also been in a place before where people drag you down to that hell as well. And, you know, I think that can be quite uncomfortable. And then all of a sudden you realise, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And it's your environment, it's the people, it's like...
And it's hard to look at that sometimes.
Yeah. Especially if you're loyal as well and you care about other people.
You get the guilt of, these people need me though, and how do I... It's the self-neglect again that comes in, and you're neglecting yourself. But it's really interesting because what you just said is you now choosing differently. Can I ask you, I know this is you asking me questions, but because I've had to do this myself and I'm genuinely curious about how other people go about it. What is your checklists? Like, what are you looking? Because, you know, when we go in a relationship, we've all been taught about check for this, check for that. But in friendships, we don't do it so much. And a lot of people actually have more issues in their friendships a lot.
Yeah, I hear that.
You know what I mean? Friendships are very fleeting a lot of the time. You've got your core people, but everyone else kind of goes in and out, in and out, in and out. What are you looking for when you meet someone?
I kind of look at it a place of, I want to be the best version of myself. My own version of what that is mine. So then everyone that I surround myself with has to either complement that or encourage me in that place where I might not be as good at. So that's kind of how my checklist works. Is first of all, understanding what I want for myself and who I want to be.
Finding out your needs.
Finding out my needs.
It's the hard bit.
And then, it is hard. Yeah, some people don't even
That's what I'm telling you earlier. I didn't know what my needs were for a long time.
I didn't either. Yeah. There were certain places, though, that I think I naturally fell into, whether it was like, you know, as an example, your Pilates or the music. Mine was business. But then I met friends who would train a lot or would be very headstrong, or there were certain things that I felt that I might have lacked of. So I surrounded myself with these people that actually had quite strong senses in those areas. And that's kind of what works for me, to be fair.
Yeah.
And
that's good.
Yeah.
That's a lot of the looking for your needs. I think from talking to some people and also myself, it might not be the same for everyone, but I do wonder if this would bring value to anyone. The idea of when you start to look at what it is you need and who you are as a person, sometimes that alone makes you self-conscious, or makes you feel a bit funny.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like
guilty.
I'm like guilty. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's really about going, this is who I am, and it's actually okay. It's actually okay that I'm like this. It's actually okay that I want this. It's actually okay. And those that are into it will be drawn, and those that aren't won't. And that comes a lot from acceptance with the flow of life. This is what Auntie Sophia taught me. Life is a movement, right? It's always flowing. If you become stagnant, it's just going to go on around you. So what helps me flow more is what I've learned from trial and error. And again, this year is where I've really put it into practice. If it feels good, I go with it. If it doesn't, I don't. But what is it that makes me know that it's good? You can unpack everything, right? What makes me know it's good is I'm not drained. And that's really hard to say when I leave that person. Was it the fact that I had a long day? Was it the fact that I had a drink? Or was it the fact that I had an argument with someone that made me feel drained? Or was it actually that person? And you got to just, if you start feeling a bit strange on repeat after you've been with someone,
read the signs.
Even though you can't put your finger on it, you have to just go, that's how I base my decisions, on how I feel. I'm not using this anymore. This is a million miles an hour. This is far more easy to follow.
Yeah, fair.
It's easier, but it's harder in a way. Yeah, it's hard to actually go, oh, there's something in here I need to follow that. And when I've done that on repeat, as hard as that can be, the result has been really harmonious and good. So I'm gauging it on things like that. And what I mean is to feel confident about who you are, what you need. Those that resonate will come. Those that don't, won't. You don't need to resist it. Resisting in life is where we get the problem, because flow isn't resistance.
I think one of the hardest things is not trying to convince people.
That's resistance.
Yeah, that's a form of resistance.
It's resistance instead of just flowing. I've come back to London. I've got loads of friends in London from the past. I've come back with this mindset of who is back in my life naturally will come back in. I'm not going to force. I'm not going to chase. I've done it a few times. Shall we meet up? Shall we meet up? Shall we meet up? It doesn't happen because of whatever reason. I'm not taking it personal. No. I'm seeing it as an energetic thing that life wants me to flow away from them, not because they're bad, just because it is what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. And the less I'm battling with that, the more I'm taking on that approach, the less I'm overthinking things, the more confident I feel in myself. Because in the meanwhile, while that's not working, there are actually things that are randomly flowing towards me, and people that are randomly coming back into my life, or new people in my life that are giving me that nourishment that I want.
Yeah.
You know, and it's really some of the hardest things I think about growing up, which is what I think I'm finally doing now, is growing up, is going, nah. Yeah. It's actually really hard. It's so easy to say it. Letting go of the things that are just not Instagram, not serving you. It sounds so weak when you hear it so many times. But actually, when you unpack it, it's really how you're left feeling when you go home is what makes me decide what's
important to you. Yeah. And that's a tough thing, you know, to really be conscious about, to be honest with you. I think even a lot of people, they bury their happiness.
Don't realise it.
Yeah. They're like, I just got to shrug it out, do work, or do all of these different things all the time, you know, and actually really focus on what makes people happy. I mean, I think that's a tough thing to do. And I don't know, maybe, I'm not sure if it's a man thing or a woman thing, but even for me growing up, it was always, you know, push your emotion down and just get on with it all the time. So, but I think that only lasts for a certain period of time before you pop anyway.
Somehow it will present itself some other way, right?
Yeah, in a different way, shape or form.
Yeah.
Even if you're just walking around not being the true version of yourself because you're naturally unhappy, you know. So I do really understand it. But you have got to be conscious about your surroundings, what the conversations you're having in your own head, the conversations you're having with people. There's all these little kind of breadcrumbs being laid around, and you've got to kind of like pick up on the warning signs.
You know, when people say to me, like, who's most inspirational in music? People go, who's the most inspirational DJ to you? And I always say it's the people that I know, because I know them. And I get inspired by what's around me. I don't get inspired by a famous DJ that's out of reach because they're doing these famous gigs. I'm inspired by those I know, because actually, like you say, the conversations that you have with others, if you have friends around you that have a certain attitude, naturally that rubs off on you over time.
Yeah.
You'll be like, well, that person says when there's a problem, fuck it, let's just go and have fun, or let's just do this. And if that resonates with you, after a while, when you're having a problem, you just start taking that on, because you're going to call them and you're going to end up doing that. And if that works for you, then that's a good person for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it sounds, I don't know how to word it, but like sometimes in life, I think it's like a business. If I was running a commercial corporate business, it's a commercial, I learned this in Australia when I worked in that sales office, it's a commercial decision. I'm letting you go. It's not personal. I like who you are.
Yeah.
But I'm letting you go because it's a commercial decision.
Yeah.
It doesn't suit the business anymore. What we get from you isn't helping our bottom line, ultimately. That's got to go. It's not a personal. We love your personality. It's just not going to work. And so I kind of do it like that as I'm navigating a lot of things now, kind of going, right,
are we compatible?
It's got to be mutual exchange.
Yeah.
It's not using if you're both getting something out of it.
Yeah.
It's a mutual exchange. There's a difference between someone using you and it being a mutual exchange. And everything in our life, with everyone, with everything we do, is a mutual exchange. And it has to be a mutual exchange to be healthy. And this is where we see that what we mentioned before, balance being off causes discomfort and unhappiness.
Yeah.
But when the balance is there, because of a mutual exchange, then we're good. That mutual exchange for some, like you said, I do really good things and it comes back in other ways. You've got your mutual exchange with the universe, with the greater good, and that's your mutual exchange. But for some people, they need a direct mutual exchange with someone.
Yeah.
Learn who you are, get to know who you are, and be okay with who you are. Because there's millions of people in the world, and you will have a lot of people that will resonate with you. There's a book that I read called The Organized Mind by Daniel Levitin. I love it, and I always talk about this book years later, because what I love about it is it teaches you little tools and tricks that help you know who you are and own it. Little things like, and I see this with my friends, and that's what I love about books. When I see things in my life and other people's, that I go, that book has weight to it, because what they've said is I can see it coming up in everything, right? Osho is my favorite spiritual teacher, and I read his books and I'm like, oh my God, it takes me a week. I read a paragraph and I'm like assessing everything around me and going, what he's just said, I can see everywhere. So there's weight in what he's saying. So I have to respect it, right? So Daniel Levitin's book is things like, you've got friends like this, always losing their keys, always losing their phones. How do people always lose their keys and phones? Because they're not putting them in the same place.
Right, is that why?
So Daniel Levitin goes, let's look at the basics. Save your brain space. When you come in, put your keys in the same place every time. In Australia, I did it. I put a little hook behind the door. The keys go on there. In my house now, you go behind the door. I've stuck a nail in and the keys go there. So I don't have to think where my keys are. And if you think about the amount of time it takes you to think where my keys are and find them, it might only take you 25 seconds a day. Add that up at the end of the week, at the end of the year, at the end of 10 years. That's a fucking shitload of time that you didn't need to think about that. And imagine all of the things that you do that with in your life, just day to day. So he starts with things like that, the day-to-day stuff that can just salvage. But it comes down to knowing who you are, because we can't find the tools unless you know what kind of person you are and you actually accept it. People go, I never lose things. No, bitch, you do. You're always losing shit. Yeah. Stop thinking that you're not the person that always loses things.
I'm definitely always losing.
I forget things all the time. And only, from reading this book, I go, hang on. While I'm doing cooking, I'll remember something I need for tomorrow. Don't forget to get that book out or that pen out or that notebook out, because you've got things in there that you need to put into the software tomorrow at work. I stop straight away. I get the notepad and I put it in my bag, because I'm not going to remember it later.
Yeah, that's right.
And then I go, fuck, I did it again. It's like that Woolworths advert, when you go in and you're like,
I'm always forgetting things, if I'm honest with you.
I have to, and even that, I've got to go into a shop and I get distracted and I go, hang on, go and get the thing you first went for, then browse. And that's also what I call hacking yourself.
Yeah.
You got to hack yourself.
I think lists are a very good one as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, I find it very helpful with stuff like that.
I've met people that hate lists, that stresses me out, and I'm like, I prefer to make a list for what I need to do tomorrow before I go to bed.
Yeah.
He talks about that as well. It's a really hands-on approach to getting to know yourself, making your life more organized, making your head more organized to allow space for other things. And it was a really kind of gentle, subtle way before looking into the deep kind of core personality, behavioral things, which are harder to accept because of your ego and your vulnerabilities. Just those day-to-day things of learning to get into the pattern of going, this is who I am.
Yeah.
No one's going to judge me if I lose keys. No, it's not going to be a bad thing, but it's an easier thing to start accepting about myself. And the more you start accepting about yourself, then the layers start to come off and you can go deeper with that accepting. You know what I mean? Knowing who you are is what I've spent my whole life doing, because you said at the beginning, where does the journey start for you? Having a life of not knowing who I am and being suppressed the whole time to not be able to explore it, to doing everything I can to learn who I am and get the best out of myself. Because years have been wasted not being able to express and expressing in the wrong way.
Yeah, I hear that.
Because actually, when you think you're not expressing, you do. I was not allowed to express when I was young, and it always came out in anger.
A different way.
Which is expression. And so I was known as the naughty child in the house, and which is why I ran away from home really young and ended up living in my friends' sofas and stuff for a while before my godparents took me in, because I... what's the word?
You was hurting, and you
angry.
Yeah,
angry.
Yeah, so I think what kind
tip of the iceberg, the anger. There's a lot of things. It's a cover up emotion for many emotions. You know?
And then what happens is it's all this self-destructive behaviour that goes on for I don't know how long but for me it went on for years before it went bad, before it got good.
Of course, yeah. But they say you've got to hit rock bottom, right, to come out. And I say that to people when they're having a hard time. I'm like, do you know what? It's good. Go there. We feel like shit. Let's do this. Let's go. What next? So sometimes when I feel shit,
what you find in the process, I think.
It's your mindset.
I think what happens when you do go to that dark place, you start looking more. You're more conscious about things.
You're looking for light.
Yeah. That's
you are. It's that you're in the dark. What do you look for in the dark?
Yeah.
Your light.
Light. Yeah.
That's it. And whether it's people around you that bring that light or stuff you do for yourself, it's easier to have good people around you because you don't get so dark.
Yeah.
It's really important. You know. Yeah, we were just on the topic of something.
So you went and you stayed with your godparents, is that? I
ended up from 16 to 17, because my godparents rang me and they were like, where are you? What are you doing? And I didn't want to tell them everything because they were friends with my parents. And they were like, come and stay with us. We've got space. You can stay with us. And I was a bit sceptical at the beginning. She went, just come and stay for a week. And then I ended up moving all my stuff in and stayed there. I ran away from home when I was 16. My mum said she was going to cut my head off with a knife one day. Sorry to just throw that into the conversation.
No,
that was the pinnacle moment that I went upstairs calmly, put £2 in my pocket, put a pair of knickers from the drawer in my back pocket, left the house, and that was that.
Fucking hell. That's crazy.
And I went back only when they were out to grab things, and I cleared my room without seeing them. I didn't stay a single night at that house until 2013, when I had surgery on my ovary and I needed help. And I stayed with them for about a week before I moved to Australia, and I never stayed a night there again. From the day I moved out until 2013. And I ended up staying with them, and I'm really grateful for that. Because it could have gone...
What did they do, your parents, that you felt like... Do you still perceive it in the same light, by the way?
What, my parents?
Yeah. Like, because when you're younger, I feel like, when the trauma of something can be very impactful when you're younger. But when you're older, you make a bit more peace with it. And then you might look at it from a different angle as well. I mean, one thing I spoke to somebody else about on the podcast is I always look at where everybody's come from, their journey. So because it isn't all about us. It's about us to some extent, but
the circle around you.
Yeah, that's right.
It's your environment.
Yeah, your environment. But even like what things were like for our parents or what things were like for their parents.
Well, I understand a bit about what it might have been like for them. I haven't asked enough questions, but I also know now that I'm a grown adult that if you take your anger out on a child, I'm sorry, I don't have
empathy for
I'm an adult, right? I can be vexed. I'm not going to take that out on a child. So I don't really understand why my mum did it all the time. There were 7 kids. Why was I the punch bag? Because I had a stronger personality. The first time I ran away, I was 13. 6 o'clock in the morning, I ran to my sister's house.
So it sounds like you answered it a little bit because you was probably one of the stronger.
Well, yeah. Well, when she came and found me after a few hours that I wasn't home, she didn't notice for like 4 hours that I wasn't home. Firstly, it was a bit strange, but and my mum's a good woman. She's a good person, but I found things weren't fair. And even in school, I would get kicked out to go to the head teacher's office, because I was always pulling up the teacher that things weren't fair. I had this real thing about injustice.
Yeah.
And even if the teacher was picking on someone else, I was like, hang on a minute, they didn't. What are you doing? But maybe because I had that at home, I was really up for like, don't fucking pick on people for no reason. I hate that. I still defend people now, but I've had to learn not to because I had a bad situation in London when I got back. Had a mad fight in the street a few months ago with a big guy. furniture throwing. It made me just go, whoa, okay. That has to be put in check now, Lucia. You can't keep doing that. And now I get the popcorn out instead. And I've even had to train myself to not get involved in other people's things. It bit me in the arse a few times as well, defending people, defending stuff. And it's not going very well, you know. And having to learn as well to say to friends, how do you want me to have your back? Because I'm going to put that person in a box in the ground. That's not the best thing to do. So, not literally, but you get the gist. Yeah. What do you need? And they might be like, I just want a hug and validation after. And I'm like, that's lame. But if you want that, I'll give you that. For you to have my back, I want you to speak that I don't have. If we're in a room and someone's taking the piss out of me and you speak, I'm going to love you forever.
Yes. Yeah.
That's how I want to have your back. So if someone's rude to you, I even say to my friends, don't worry about it, man. If I'm in the room, you won't even have to open your mouth. That's what I'm going to tell you. Don't talk to her like that.
Yeah.
That's how I have someone's back. But also I've learned to ask.
Pick your battles.
Yeah, my friend taught me that. She was like, I know you have my back like this, but I don't want you to have my back like that. It's really interesting. That was a hard conversation and things. Yeah. And even for myself to know when I feel very I feel very much like a lot of people don't have my back. But I've learned from her, one of my friends, she taught me that she does have my back, but this is how she
expresses it.
How my back. And I then said, well, I don't feel that. I need you to do it this way. And again, if you can't meet, then that friendship's going to be a bit difficult. And that's okay. It's okay to say, I don't want to do it like that. It's okay. And then you just go, okay, cool. I know then that we're not going to get to that level of friendship because I can't, it's not something I'm prepared to compromise on.
Tough conversations to be having with people.
Yeah, they are, but they're honest. And you can actually, I still have a very solid friendship with her. It's not the same, it's different, but there's still a very solid bond there because we have that ability to communicate. And that's what makes me bond with someone, the ability to communicate. Because that's what bonding is. It's communicating. That is the verbal intimacy.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
That makes sense.
Where was I?
So
my mum taking it out on me.
Yeah.
When I ran away, she came and found me at my sister's. She called everyone. I was at my sister's house, and she came in and she went, "Why did you leave?" And I went, "Because you always take your anger out on me." And she went, "You know what? You're right. I'm really sorry. You never cry. Like you're stronger." And I said, "But because I don't cry, it doesn't mean I'm stronger. I'm hurting." And this is when I started to realize from a kid that adults, they don't get everything just because they're adults. I was a child and I knew that crying wasn't an expression of pain. Sometimes crying was a fucking manipulation. Do you know what I mean? I'd fight with my brothers and sisters and they'd cry.
Yeah.
And because society thinks crying is that, they're hurt and you're not hurt, you go to the one who's crying. And I'm like, hang on a minute. They're so manipulative. You've just hurt me and you're getting...
Yeah, upset about something.
You're getting the help. But you've just hurt me. That was happening a lot in my house. And so I said to my mum, that's not on. I'm young, I'm 13.
I think the only issue with that though as well is people can only, I was thinking about this the other day about something else. People can only see the front page of a book. They can't read what's going on. When you're talking about another person, they can only see what's in front of them. They can't see what's going on inside. And I think what I had to do was learn to articulate, express myself correctly, because because you're sending mixed signals out, and that's the problem. So people are misreading the situation, not maybe sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, but then we're putting this person in a completely negative light altogether.
Yeah.
Because we're thinking, well, why don't they understand me? We don't even understand ourselves properly to some extent.
And also that I love that what you said about the book, because what happens is when we read the first page is we kind of get assumptive about what's on the second page. But really curiosity is the thing that saves us there. And instead of assuming or judging that person in a certain light, all we need to do is ask a question.
Yeah.
If you stay assumptive, how are you feeling right now? Yeah, I'm feeling like shit. The person's crying, says, I'm feeling like shit. You're both feeling like shit. How that presents doesn't matter. How the person feels is what matters.
Yeah.
And so my mum was really good for 6 weeks. There wasn't a problem. And then the pattern came back in, because after a while it gets hard. And when you're triggered and you've got loads of kids around and, who knows what's happening with her and my dad, I don't know. Now I'm an adult, I'm aware that there's a lot of things that can go on, right? And so maybe she found it hard to keep working on that thing with me.
Yeah, 100%.
And then I ran away again. And it was 4 times that I ran away until I decided they're not changing. They're not going to work on this with me. I've been doing my bit. When they've said, can you do this? I've said yes. And then they do it, but only for a short time. And I got fed up of that. So I moved out. And I look back now and I think, bloody, I had mad boundaries then.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's fair.
I didn't think as much. I was like, this feels like shit, I'm off. It was a bit mad, probably driven by anger again, but I look back at my younger self to a lot in my adult life. I've gone, I want to be 17 again. Because when I was 17, I put myself first a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, did you? Quite
I say that, but I mean, there were some wasn't self-absorbed, but I just didn't overthink. I was aggressive.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck this.
Yeah, I was.
It was aggression, so I don't think it was healthy, but a little bit of that at times
very,
can come handy.
Impulsive as well.
Yeah.
No, just very impulsive.
And now I think about things a bit more.
Yeah.
I see what the benefit could be if I work on it or whatever. And also that Buddhist approach of when the struggle is there, what benefit can I get from it? The lotus flower grows in shit. In dirt, right?
Yeah, that's right.
You can still blossom in a bad environment. I do think that you can if you have the knowledge, though. So what I now do when I'm in shit situations, because you can't avoid them, it's not real life to avoid them, is to go, how can I, even if it's just, how can I work on this personal thing myself, this trigger that they're bringing up, how can I soothe? That's a benefit. That's a good thing. I'll always find the silver lining, but that's my personality, which is why I'm a solution finder to the problem, which is why I get paid to do those things.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
It's good. So even in a small time situation, my brain's going, for myself, how can I get a benefit from this?
The other thing I've always felt quite, I'll use your word, harmonious about is...
Do you like it?
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah,
the angel comes out. It's angelic.
Regardless of kind of like that negative situation that you've been through, like the ripple effect of all of these other amazing things that they lead to in the process, there's something quite beautiful about that overall. Like
100%.
Our pain ends up being our
joy.
Yeah, our joy.
I wouldn't. Pain ends up being the beauty. I do think there are some things I haven't had to go through. I didn't need to go through that. But I'm grateful for everything because I like who I am now and I like where I'm going now.
Yeah.
More like. So right now, I'm okay with who I am, but I know in a year's time, I'm going to have very different loving feelings towards myself because I'm making the decisions that I've done now. And I know where these steps are leading and I'm really happy with that journey. And that's really important.
It's quite a conscious path that you're on now.
Yeah.
Where before it was a little bit like wherever it kind of
flows,
yeah.
And I've had that moment twice in my life where I've gone, I'm really happy with the direction and what I'm doing. If I died tomorrow, I'd be okay. I didn't succeed or achieve it, but I'm happy with the fact that I'm progressing towards it. And that's enough for me because waiting for the end goal is you don't know when that's going to end. And the thing about life is it doesn't end until you die.
Yeah.
So there's always, even if you succeed, say in your business, there's going to be still problems at the point that you succeed. It's never going to just be smooth sailing. But the smooth sailing I've learned since coming back to London is the mindset. It's not what's happening around and what you achieve. It's the mindset. Because like I said to you before, I've achieved things and not celebrated them because my mindset hasn't let me.
Yeah, allowed you to. Yeah. I've been
now,
the same.
Yeah. And even now, people are like, London, it's raining, it's cold. And I'm like, yeah, but all the amazing things that I have got from being in London, I do not give a fuck that it's raining and then it's cold.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot more.
You know what a rainy day really looks like.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. And there's this book that I've been reading called Deep Work. What's his name? I can't remember the name of the author. Cal Newport. So, yeah, Cal Newport, it's a sick book. You should read it, man. Deep Work by Cal Newport. And this other book, actually, it's not deep. Deep Work's been really good to get me focused on things. But this other book I was reading, there are two of them. They go together. Fuck, I'll have to tell you the name of it. But it talks about the things that we need to do that we hate doing. But they're absolutely, you have to do them, certain things. And it talks about the negative things that we do to ourselves and our brains. And one of those things is complaining. And my ex used to say to me, fucking hell, you fucking complain. I'm like, I'm a woman. But no, it's not about being a woman. It's just actually, again, my upbringing, looking at all the negatives, stuff like that, never really seeing the positives first, seeing the negatives and then the positives come. And I accept I'm like that. But the thing is, I always see the positives in the end. So I'm okay with it now.
Yeah.
I'm not beating myself up for finding the negatives. I know that I'm going to find the positive eventually. When you complain, it puts such a negative twist on your brain. Your pathway, your neural pathway when you're being negative, when you're complaining is nothing but negative. It can put you into depression if you complain a lot. If you start noticing the people around you that complain, you'll notice patterns in their life. It's not very positive. And so he says it's normal to complain. It's natural. But every time you complain, find something you're grateful for straight away, something that's good. And so I started doing that. And it has actually physically changed me to the point that my dark days are so few and far between now that I'm feeling more confident about my life going forward, because I feel like I have been able to hack myself. And when I say something negative, immediately, even if it's just like with London, like, oh, money's not as good as it was in Melbourne, but fuck, man, I'm so nourished with everyone I meet.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a direct positive about that thing. You can go, the weather's shit, but at least you got some sunny days. No, it doesn't have to, anything negative, anything positive, anything at all.
Yeah.
I've had people too. I've met them. And I learn from others as well. I don't just learn about my own patterns. And I see it in others, and then people will talk to me. And I've started to notice that when people get negative or complain, I suddenly throw a positive in.
Yeah, to link.
And I'm not trying to dismiss them. I'm like, yeah, that's fucking shit, but at least
you got this, yeah.
And it's not like you know, when people go, you could have a worse life, you could be living like those people in the world. It's not that. It's allowing a positive neural pathway in your brain for your brain's thinking capacity and your life and your mindset, and the quality of your life is your mindset. Absolutely is your mindset. So changing that, diverting that negative pathway to something more positive doesn't mean you dismiss the fact that you hate the rain, but you've made your brain not go down that pathway, because it's there, but we don't have to highlight that. We don't have to go down that tunnel. We can just acknowledge that it's there and suddenly put something more positive on top of it. So then that's what we're left with.
It sounds like a lot of these therapy sessions have been quite useful in more than just for your life as well.
I mean, this was a book. I got that from a book.
This was from the book.
Yeah, but I think when you've done therapy for a bit, when you read books, I guess the way you take the information and the way you process it, you start to go, that's free there. I didn't have to pay fucking 80 quid to get that. Let me just apply that in my life now, you know. Definitely. And sometimes I do talk to my therapist and she's like, you know, I talked to her about the fact I want to be a therapist, and she's like, yeah, this is really, you'd be good at this. And I'm just like, yeah, but it's because of, this is why I think everyone should do therapy, however, the right therapist, though, because not all therapists are great. Some of them just validate you and you just don't need to pay for that. Some people might. Some people want to vent.
Some people are very judgmental as well.
Yeah, some therapists.
Yeah,
no, I don't approve of that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Or when I talk to my friends about therapy and I go, what happened? And they go, oh yeah, they think this about him. And I'm like, what? How are they making your therapist can't make decisions about people in your life.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not about that. But some people like that. They just want a bitching fest and they want to pay for it.
I think
True.
What I found with therapy, a lot of therapy, well, my therapist in the past, is that they show you the paths. They show you all these paths you can go, options. And it's down to you which one you want to pick.
That's what I was saying. Sometimes you need the outside opinion of the options because your options are limited to what you know. Yeah,
what you know. Exactly that. And that's exactly what I've found has been really useful in that. And then it gives you just a wider perspective of your life, of what you want to do.
And it gives you opportunity. It gives you the opportunity to make the change that you want.
Yeah.
Maybe in a different way that you would have thought. But opportunity is really important for growth as well, because you've got to have that option for everything. I'm a big believer in options.
Yeah,
you know,
we've all got options. You
don't have to just react one way. You can go, I can get angry right now and do this. I can do that. And I started to get to the point of going, there's a consequence to all of your reactions. And I'm stopping to do things a lot of the time now based on my reaction, but based on the consequence of the reaction. So if I do that reaction right now, I'll feel good. But the consequence of that is what I want to focus on, because that's what remains. And so I'm choosing the one that gives me the most peace, because that consequence of the reaction, if it's peaceful, that's okay. Even if through that piece I feel like a mug, I'm going to let you have this because I know afterwards it's going to be peaceful. Right now I feel like a mug, but I'm aware that I'm the right thing for what I consider to be good for me, because it's different in my life. It's changed.
And then it comes down to what you need to do for yourself rather than what you want to do for yourself.
For my personality as well. I know if I do this reaction now, it's going to look good in the moment. I'm still going to defend myself, but I'm going to overthink that to fuck when I go to bed. And I don't want that, you know? And this is the thing. Like, I've done things in my life that are good, but then I go home and I'm like, this isn't good. I should be feeling good about this, and I'm not. Yeah. And there's other options to get a good result, but the good result that makes me feel peaceful and calm is the one I'm going for now. And it's just really, it's interesting because my personality is known to be one thing, but I want to do the things that give me the peace when I'm at home. And that also looks like I'm changing. I've had people go, you're different. I'm like, yeah, I'm different, but I tell you what's better. I'm different in a good way, because now I'm sleeping at night and not overthinking things that I shouldn't be overthinking.
Yeah.
You know, I guess what I've just said might sound confusing, but it's about layers. It's about layers and layers of things. It's not just straight black and white. And in this right now, there's repercussions.
Yeah, because you become a bit bitter and resentful in your head. If you don't do the thing that you was meant to do for yourself at that time, you start thinking, oh no, why did I let that happen? Why did I let that?
You resent yourself.
You start having resentment. Yeah. So it's a powerful trait to be able to be conscious of all of that, to be fair.
And it literally is a moment of pause.
Yeah.
It's the ego that stops you doing that. And your pattern is just literally going, hang on a minute, what are my options right now? What am I going to do right now? And choose the one that you think is best. And if you don't know what to choose, you don't have to do anything. Sometimes that is an option.
That is an option, yeah.
I'm not doing anything.
Yeah,
I don't feel good about not doing anything, but I'd rather not do something right now and do the wrong thing. You know, I can deal with that, because then at least it's a decision that you've made and you're not acting out of impulse, which can sometimes be very good, but sometimes
go against you.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, do you know what, Lucia? We've definitely had a good chat today. And I've definitely appreciate you coming on as well. It's been great hearing your kind of side of things, your stories. I wish you all the best with your podcast as well.
Thank you.
So
it's been nice being on the other side of it.
Yeah, because you wanted to know what it felt like. So I'm glad you got to do it on here.
And I hope you also, from my stories, have come away with something.
Yeah, I found it very insightful.
That is good for you.
I found it very insightful. I'm sure other people did. Nemo? Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Thanks.